It is a collaborative process. 2, involve the entire community in the discussion, review the needs of the community served by the police agency, and evaluate the department's current policies and practices. Thank you. Establish policies that will allow police to effectively and safely perform their duties. Develop policy recommendations resulting from this review. Offer a plan for public comment. Present the comment to the local legislative body to ratify or adopt, and certify adoption of the plan to the state budget director on or before April 1st, 2021. With me on this Zoom meeting are members of the committee. Specifically, Patty D'Agostino is not on, right?
Right.
Dave Alfano, Sergeant Andrew Llewellyn, Greg Monteleone, Moira Morrissey, Peter Parsons, that's myself, Andrea Rendo, Ron Ross, Richard Sclarin, and the Reverend Nikki Edelman, and Charlotte didn't make it.
Mr. Parsons?
Yes.
Could I make a suggestion? I'm just going through the list of participants, and I would suggest that anyone who is wants to be part of the meeting fully identify themselves and not just be.
We're going to do that bit, Andrea, in a second.
Oh, see, I'm ahead of you. Okay, thank you.
Therefore, any residents of the town of Lewisboro, property owners in the town of Lewisboro, or business owners in the town of Lewisboro may request to speak. If you would like to speak when we open the floor to the public, please do the following to virtually raise your hand on Zoom. Place your cursor at the bottom of the window and you will see an image of people labeled participants. Click the image. The panel will open on the right-hand side of your screen. You can then click raise hand from the icons at the bottom. Participants who have raised their hand will show up on the host screen in the order that you have raised your hand. The host will then unmute you and tell you that you have the floor. You may also unmute yourself if your microphone isn't active. We're also asking that your video be off during the duration of the meeting and only turned on when invited to speak. Prior to sharing your thoughts or asking a question, please state your name and the hamlet with which you are associated and how you are associated with it. If you dialed in on a phone, you can raise your hand to indicate that you want to talk by pressing *9. Please keep your comments to 2 minutes. If someone is disrespectful or uses profanity, they will be asked to leave the virtual meeting, just as they would be asked to leave a physical meeting. Please remember that profanity will not be tolerated in any form at any time, including gestures and acronyms when your camera is on. Now, please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. There we are. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and the republic
for which it stands,
one nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. I would now like to pass on to some opening comments from myself. Overall, I think it's important to note that this plan is in no way intended to address racism in the US or even New York with their multitude of police forces. It is strictly limited to Lewisboro and the Lewisboro Police Department, a very small group of police officers in a semi-rural town. Nobody has so far criticized our current police department. They have criticized town residents in general for being prejudiced, Some undoubtedly are, but this committee is not able to change that. There has been criticism of the state police, over which the town has no jurisdiction and where there is significant recent evidence of change. There has also been criticism of the Lewisboro Police Department, which dates back into the previous century and is to a very differently organized force, one with no full-time officers or police chief. Since that time, we have moved towards a highly trained force. The influence of 3 full-time officers has been pervasive in setting higher standards. Further progress will require increased funding, even if it is just more time spent on training. Training is great, but it has to be paid for with taxpayer dollars. The scope of this hearing is limited to the language in the draft document. We need to remember that this committee must submit this document or an amended version to the town board so that it can be agreed on Monday, March 22nd, and submitted to the governor's office, the governor's budget office, before April 1st. If we fail to make that date, all funding to the town coming through the state will be stopped. Some key points in the plan as it stands are, it is more than increased training in response to mental health issues and implicit bias. 2 officers on patrol instead of 1 beginning in May, so reducing response times and providing backup, so lessening the likelihood that the first officer on the scene will need to resort to force. Body-worn cameras before September the 1st, 21, for all officers on patrol, so providing a real-time record if there is a disagreement about an event. Improved complaint procedure as of April 1st, 21, via the New York State Attorney General, Letitia James, Law Enforcement Misconduct Office. Ethnicity box on electronic tickets to create a better record and eliminate the option of unknown race on tickets. Finally, New York State's 2019 green light law will dramatically reduce double tickets based on the Connecticut experience, because almost all drivers will now have licenses. That's enough from me. Who wishes to speak?
Mr. Parsons, I still want to bring to your attention, there are a number of individuals in the audience who either have a first name or no identifying information. So they may want to be present to listen or watch the meeting, but perhaps we should make it clear that if they raise their hand, they won't be called on unless fully identified.
Well, yes, okay, I'm leaving that to Janet. She is running that side of the meeting, and she is welcome to follow your lead.
Okay, so Andrea, what we have is we have it locked, so they can't change their name. Only the co-hosts, which all the committee members are. So what they would have to do is they would have to leave the meeting, sign back in, and be properly identified.
Well, then that sounds like what they have to do.
And then keep in mind there's phone numbers there, which I can't do anything about.
Correct.
If you call in, it's a phone number.
Want to try to avoid anything similar to what happened last time from happening again.
Correct, and that's why they can't change their name, because we have that portion locked. Joel as the host can rename, but you know, are you, for example, Doreen's iPhone? A lot of people, are you comfortable with me calling on that person?
Well, that's all. Can it be any more on an iPhone?
Yes.
But some people don't know how to do that. So their video does not come on. The video is locked. So when I call on somebody, I could ask them to identify their full name.
And if there's a problem, you could cut the sound right away, right?
Any of you can as co-hosts.
Okay.
Okay, there's 3 hands up.
Okay, let's go.
Okay. A reminder, it's going to be 2 minutes, similar to a town board meeting. Please state your full name and what hamlet you live in. I'll give you a 30-minute warning, and then you'll hear the sound at 2 minutes. The first person is Sam Zafiro. I'm asking you to unmute. Sam?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I apologize for the child they're crying in the background, so I'm going to talk. My name is Sam Zafir. I live in South Salem. I just want to say first, I appreciate all the work that's gone into the formation of the draft, particularly from Chief Alfano. It seems like he was trying proactively to reinvent the police department through community outreach and training well before Governor Cuomo's executive order, and his respectful demeanor in the face of relentless attacks, despite not having any personal responsibility for the charges alleged against him and his department, is commendable and should serve as an example to everyone on the committee. I just want to speak very briefly about the suggestions by some committee members in the last meeting to form a civilian complaint committee. I find it a little concerning if the board would consider forming such a committee without careful study of models of existing committees, such as that of the NYPD. But I'm unclear as to how one might even scale down the size and functions of an existing committee like that to oversee a police force of 13. A 3-person committee to oversee 13 people seems a little ridiculous. And these committees shouldn't be staffed by random political appointees from the town, but to serve some kind of like empty gesture of goodwill, but professionals with investigative experience. Even so, it would be a waste of taxpayer dollars to hire investigators who hold no actual authority over the police to review complaints that up to now are literally non-existent, especially when this function is already being served by an anonymous reporting system via the state police or district attorney's office. The only actual effect of this gesture would be to further undermine the morale of our local police, which will in turn lower their effectiveness in interacting positively with the community. So with a limited budget, I feel the best possible option for ensuring safe and transparent interactions between the committee and the police would be the procurement of body cameras for every officer in the department. And I hope to see the adoption of an increased budget for body cameras as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Next, Doreen's iPhone. Doreen, could you please state your full name?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, Doreen, could you state your
Hi.
full name and hamlet?
Doreen Estasio, South Salem, New York.
Thanks, Doreen. Go ahead.
I just would like to say that I'm in support of our police. I've lived in South Salem for over 21 years. I've raised 2 children here. And over the years, we've had some mishaps or what have you. And anytime that we needed their help, they were here right away. We've worked with the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, and they have always lent their support, their time, and their efforts. And what's going on in the town now is, I just think it's unfalse. I know that that's my personal opinion. And I agree with the woman who spoke earlier to try to adopt body cams because they don't lie. And if we could put that in the budget, I think that would be wonderful. And I think we should all support our police. And just want to say thank you. That's all.
Okay, Doreen, thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Jimin Han. Jimin, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. So I was very disappointed to see very little of substance in the current draft of the plan. I know that Supervisor Parsons just read the governor's executive order, but on the internet, actually, the executive order states very clearly that each chief executive of such local government shall convene the head of the local police agency, others in the community, to consider evidence-based policing strategies, any studies addressing systemic racial bias or racial justice in policing, implicit bias awareness training, de-escalation training and practices, law enforcement assisted diversion programs, restorative justice practices, community-based outreach, and conflict resolution. It goes on to talk about violence prevention and reduction interventions. Also, it asks to create a plan to adopt and implement the recommendations resulting from this review and consultation, including modifications, modernizations, and innovations to its policing deployments, with this idea of general promotion of improved police agency and community relationships based on trust, fairness, accountability, and transparency, which seek to reduce any racial disparities in policing. So I feel that that is what the charge is coming down from the governor. And if we're going to be submitting this plan in order to get this funding, I think we really need to be sure that we have done this. I have seen in this plan there's a line about online implicit bias training, but clearly in this executive order, it states that Black Lives Matter and lists all the people who have died in police-involved killings. And it talks, even though it includes comprehensive all over the place, we haven't seen this. I'd like to see this included in the plan. This is just to respond to the executive order. Oh, sorry, is my time up, Janet?
Yes, it is. I'm
Okay,
sorry, Jimmy.
Okay, so.
Okay. Thank you. Next. Yeah, he's a co-host. Yeah. Next now is an iPad. I'm going to ask you to unmute and please state your name. If it's not appropriate, you'll be unmuted immediately. Okay, iPad.
iPad apparently lowered their hand, and now it told me to unmute.
Okay. Is this Harry Heffler?
Yes, this is.
Okay.
It says I'm unable to start video. I'm not sure if that's.
No, you can't start video. Just, just what hamlet do you live in?
I live in Vista.
Okay.
I am, and I'm not. I don't own land. I live with my parents. I'm still a senior in high school, but.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
All right. So one thing I first want to say is that taking the steps to creating a reform plan is definitely very admirable. It shows a a sense of progress, of understanding, and I just lost my train of thought first. But one thing I definitely was also thinking about was especially the mental health crisis intervention. The general vagueness in something, especially the topics including signs and symptoms of mental illness. As someone who suffers from depression, anxiety, I've had some dark experiences, and it's definitely something that's not easy to indicate. And then a decreased need for how to assess a mental health crisis. It really varies. There's no one size fits all solution for mental health crises. What may work for someone may not work for others. For example, telling me not to do something is definitely not as effective as telling me what to do instead, if that makes sense, and sort of positive reinforcement. And then it's really, and decreased need for use of force. It's definitely like, it feels a little bit like you're putting a little bit of a burden on the police in that sense of having them need to assess these mental health crises instead of maybe directly put having mental health agencies and mental health specialists come onto the scene to assist in that sense. I think that's definitely one thing that is super important that I don't see laid out in this plan. The idea of also including mental health agencies, people who specifically specialize in mental health to come onto the scene as well. Because it's
So, Harry, I'm sorry, but your time is up.
I was actually just about done, so
Oh, good time. All right, well, thank you for your comments. Next, let's try iPad again. iPad, I'm asking you to unmute. Could you please state your name and how much?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Kiss. I'm a resident of Cross River for 16 years, and I've been an LVAC member for the past 7 years. My experience working with the Lewisboro PD, Chief Alfano, Sergeant Llewellyn, always willing to help, always professional, courtesy, respectful to all residents, any patients, whether the call was a difficult call, but always willing to help us, carrying patients out. Sergeant Llewellyn, after one of the snowstorms, grabbed a shovel, cleared a path from the house to the ambulance, bringing the patients out, but always a wonderful group to work with. It's been my pleasure, and I support our police members 100%, and I want to thank them for all they do. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next hand that I saw that was up was Glenda Faber. Glenn, I'm asking you to unmute.
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hi, Linda Faber, Cross River. As the governor mandated this review for the whole state, it's one size fits all, and I appreciate Peter stating that we're reviewing Lewisboro. It seems that all the negative aspects of everything that's been brought up and the comment made by a previous speaker, they want to bring in things from all over the country. We can't solve those problems. We can only solve what's in Lewisboro. I know there are problems in Lewisboro, but compared to this country, they're minimal. The department is very effective. It's not, as Peter said, when it was part-time. So let's solve things in Lewisboro. Let's not spend money on something we can't find. And that's all I have to say. And I think the police department is doing an excellent job. They could always do better. The body cams will make them do a better job. But I don't understand how they are going to check off ethnicity, if I can't even pronounce it. Are they going to be trained in anthropology to identify? Because any forms that ask that, I put unknown. That is not something that I need to share. And that's all I have to say. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Next person that her hand was up, it was Cynthia Ryan. Cynthia, I'm asking you to unmute.
Hi, am I unmuted?
Yes, we can hear you, Cynthia.
Hi there. Hi, Cynthia Ryan. I live in South Salem. I want to thank everyone and Dave Alfano for supporting our town, doing a great job. And thank you everyone for being on this committee. The last sentence in your draft says the community's needs and expectations are met. I'm not so sure. I am concerned that the Reform Committee didn't validate and take their member stories of racism as evidence needed to see there is racism in our community and policing, and will only take it seriously if more people come forward, when the fear of coming forward was clearly expressed. I'm concerned that Black people are 2 to 3 times more likely to be pulled over by police in our town. I'm concerned when the N-word is shouted on an elementary school bus when there's a Black child on the bus and no parent or child of any race comes forward to report it. Fear is driving silence. Racism thrives on silence. I'm concerned that people in the community feel fear, and when they are threatened for speaking out and reach out to the LPD for safety, they're told the police can't do anything. That's not meeting all the needs and expectations of the whole community when the LPD can't serve and protect everyone. I'm concerned that the Reform Committee didn't see the value of the letter and proposals submitted by its member, Nikki Edelman, that clearly identifies how anti-racism training by the LPD would benefit our community. None of her spot-on suggestions were incorporated into the draft reinvention plan. As a concerned community member with a mixed background whose ancestors were of slave status, I ask that the Reform Committee choose the actively anti-racist approach and not be complicit with the status quo. I ask that you look at the broader role of the LPD in our community and include the anti-racist training and the other initiatives in Nikki's proposal in the reinvention plan to increase trust with the community and help promote respect and empathy within the community. With that training, I believe the community's needs will be better met. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. The next person is Barbara Mangione. Barbara, I'm asking you to unmute.
How was that?
That's good.
Okay. First of all, I just want to thank the entire committee for the work they've put in the past several months. It obviously hasn't been easy for them. I especially want to thank Mrs. Biancone and Mr. Ross for putting their narratives out there, some very painful narratives that we could all learn from. I do understand, however, also that this meeting is to kind of review the document that went out that many people just realized today there was a public comment session. So I do want to just address one section, which was the complaint investigation and tracking, where it says anonymous complaints are accepted and complaints will be taken from anyone with or without a connection or direct relationship to the incident. Obviously, there is a need for people to be able to file an anonymous complaint. For some people have expressed fear of retribution. So I personally, I don't like anonymous complaints personally, but I can definitely see the use for them here if it makes someone feel like they could actually get their story out there and have it addressed. I'm a little concerned about what seems to be almost a third-party report anonymously. I think that leaves that whole kind of pipeline open to some kind of abuses. So I think that needs to be looked at so that we can make sure that people people registering a complaint about any kind of issues, they are true issues. They are not something that somebody else wants to put out there. There are people in this community that want to speak, that want their voices heard, that want to talk about things that may have been done to them. And I'm all for that. I am not for third-party narratives. I don't want to see that being abused. And also I'm hoping that if we do go ahead with allowing complaints from people who are not actively involved in the situation or related to the people, and they are deemed to be unfounded or untrue, that there is some kind of system where they, for lack of a better word, there's some kind of follow-up from the police so that they can make sure that this doesn't happen again, so that our resources aren't utilized inappropriately, and that true complaints can be addressed. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Barbara. Next, I'm asking Jeremy Zittimer to unmute. Jeremy?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good evening. This is Jeremy Zittimer from Golden's Bridge. Listen, you all know how I feel. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think Chief David Alfano is a good man doing all he knows to keep our town safe. He has taken a handful of actions that demonstrate he cares about equity, and I hope he has a long and successful tenure as our chief. I have legitimate concerns about LPD's ability to fulfill their commitment to equity, anti-racism, and collective public safety in our town. I reflect on the way these meetings have gone over the last few months. I reflect on the fact that Reverend Edelman sent the committee 22 plus proposals for anti-racist community safety in Lewisboro, and every single one of them was left out of the committee's police reform plan. I reflect on how many months it took this committee to address the issue of race, and how the committee now suggests that their hands are tied in revising their plan because there isn't much time left. And I am left with one conclusion. LPD, left to its own devices, will not do enough to ensure the safety of marginalized community members, and this committee's plan as it stands today will not get them there. So here's what needs to happen. This committee needs to set forth clear new policies immediately that meet the anti-racist mandate of Executive Order 203. This committee needs to commit to Reverend Edelman's 22 plus proposals, including anti-racism training, and they need to do so in writing in their report to the governor. This committee needs to acknowledge hard truths like the fact that industry experts agree that implicit bias training is proven ineffective. The committee needs to commit to rigorous assessment of all disparities in policing and needs to rigorously seek out procedural guidance from experts in anti-racism and equitable policy, like the consultants working with KLSD. The committee needs to recognize the community's fear about New York State Police and not leave complaint review to New York State. The committee needs to accept that racism lives in every single one of us, you, me, all of us. What matters is what we do about it. What matters is not our past, but our future. And everyone in Lewisboro, regardless of their race, gender, sexuality, ability, or income, deserves to feel safe in our future. I implore this committee to do what is necessary to get us there, even when it is hard. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. Next, I'm asking Simone O'Connor to unmute.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, Simone O'Connor, Vista, New York. First, I want to thank the committee for participating in this Governor Cuomo has his hands full mandated group. I have many questions about the selection process of this group. For example, one member, a reverend, only here for a year. And as a matter of fact, one member actually questioned why she was selected. Then I looked at this draft and the supplemental training section. I'd like to know how one trains for ethical and moral courage and the duty to intercede and intervene. How is zero tolerance policy on hate crimes and incidents that are biased in nature actually determined, and by who? Why are anonymous complaints accepted and taken from anyone with or without a connection or direct relationship to the incident permitted? Is there no longer a right to face your accuser? This could result in people who have a national wish to defund the police to gather fictional stories from their followers on Facebook after begging for any negative interactions. Starting June 11, 2020, electronic tickets cannot be issued unless a box is checked off as to the ethnic background of a person to keep accurate reports. Is this following some sort of state ordinance? If people are now discussing identifying to different genders, are people not permitted to identify as to different ethnic backgrounds? Who decides ethnic backgrounds? Finally, I've had nothing but positive experiences with our police department. One of many stories come to mind. Once my youngest son's debit card number was stolen by a resident in town, and the entire situation was handled professionally and respectfully and helped put us at ease. I cannot say enough good things about our police. Chief Alfano, keep up the good work. Sergeant Llewellyn and the rest of you. We absolutely love you and are grateful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Simone. Next, I'm asking Lenny Esposito to unmute. Hi, Lenny.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. It's Lenny Esposito. I reside in South Salem. Policing is meant to adapt in order to follow changes in law and policy. Training is essential and should be ongoing, improving the safety of citizens as well as our law enforcement officers. Making all citizens feel safe is extremely important. I heard the woman who was on this committee loud and clear during the last meeting. I believe her name is Charlotte Biancone, but forgive me if I am not correct, as I do not know the names of all who serve on the committee. I will not forget how she said a law enforcement officer followed her and her young son home while her son drove. It is a disturbing story and obvious that she remembers it as if it were yesterday. This type of experience should be addressed. People who have an encounter like that should be encouraged to immediately report it to the law enforcement agency involved where it can be investigated. The officer needs to explain their actions and be disciplined if warranted. More importantly, a visit to that young man by a representative to extend a hand and make him feel safe and protected could be a valuable step in improving police relations. Perhaps Ms. Biancone and her son would have a different and better memory of that experience. Lastly, it is leaders who must own their responsibility to improve police and community relations. Policing is apolitical. It has always been. As we are attending this meeting, law enforcement officers are responding to calls for help throughout our entire nation. They are on call 24 hours a day, every day, willing to risk their lives without regard for the race, religion, or sexual preference of the person in need. The governor took a step in charging this committee with input in improving policing. He also must, at every turn, when policing is discussed in New York State, inform people of the good things law enforcement has done, which by far outnumber the negative incidents. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Lenny. Oh, okay. Next we have Liz Katz. I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. A few things I just want to say here. Things I see on social media and listening to people talking here. I feel like there's a lot of a witch hunt going on against our police department. People asking people to secretly come forward to take notes, get together, when Chief Alfano has already stated that he welcomes people to come to him to give him feedback, and if there was an incident, to let him know. My grandmother, may she rest in peace, always said, if you keep digging deep enough, eventually you'll find a problem that may or may not exist. How is it okay for me to accept my house and others in my area as property being vandalized and respect those same people who disagree with what the police are doing, but it's okay for you to attack my home and others' home? How am I supposed to take you seriously and listen to how you feel when you don't take what I want to say seriously? If I don't matter to you, why should you matter to me? And by the way, my husband is a BIPOC, so glad that you went and attacked my house. Dave has asked multiple times for people to reach out to him. Sergeant Llewellyn, Chief Alfano, and the rest of your department, the fact that every day you get up and go to work and face what you do and still protect and serve the people in this town, even if they are against you. For that, I am eternally grateful and appreciate all that you do. Thank you.
Janet, your sound's off.
Thanks, Rich.
Sure.
Sorry. Let's try that again. Paul Stievelman, I'm asking you to unmute.
Yes. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much.
Mhm.
My name is Paul Stievelman. I live in Vista. I've been a resident for quite some time, but I've never participated in a forum like this. So thank you for allowing me to speak. I want to say that I don't come into this with any preconceived notions at all, political or otherwise. I'm just listening to it as I enjoy being a member of this town and this hamlet. And I think it's a wonderful place to live. I think the people are wonderful, and it's been a great experience for me and my family. Having listened to all this, my view is, I think I see this as just a remedy to a problem that may not exist here to the extent it would exist perhaps in much more troubling neighborhoods with more pervasive problems and challenges. So how I see this, my own opinion, is a lot of bureaucratic micromanaging as a way to substitute for the judgment of the officers doing the job every day. By that, I mean, I think police officers, just like every other public servant and people in private industry as well, are subject to performance assessments. They either have good judgment and are doing the job and serving the public well, or they are not. And they may also need training from time to time. That's reasonable. But at the end of the day, if they're executing their job and they have the proper judgment and they reflect the values of our community, I believe you have to give them broader space to exercise that judgment in serving our communities and not micromanage their interactions, because then I think you take away from them what the value that they add as individuals and the value that they add in knowing our citizens and serving our community and being a member of our community. So therefore, I realize I'm out of time. I just like to say, I don't think that the proposals are necessary, and I think that I do support what the police are doing, but of course they should be subject to review just like every other employee. Thank you very much for the time.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Next, I'm asking Jim O'Connor to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Who is Reverend Edelman? Is he a resident of Lewisboro? That's a quick question. Allegedly, the Committee on Police Reform comes from a mandate from Governor Cuomo, the same governor who's responsible for 15,000 nursing home deaths and is embroiled in a sex harassment scandal and is accused of being a bully. The fish rots from the head. These are real scandals with real accusers, not anonymous complaints.
Excuse me, but this is not, as far as I know, there is nothing in this plan about Governor Cuomo's personal life. So I don't think it's really relevant.
Can he continue, Peter?
Yes.
Or,
yes.
Okay. Okay, Jim, I'm asking you to unmute. I paused your time.
Again, what concerns me is the scandals. What concerns me is a non-tax-paying social justice sub-adult warrior living in their parents' basement who gets their news from the Vice channel can make an anonymous complaint against our wonderful police officers. These men and women took an oath to serve and protect and defend the Constitution. These people have no problem destroying a career and reputation of a civil servant. We should rename the Katona train station in Golden's Bridge to the Looney Tune station. Thank you.
Okay, and next, I'm asking Ted Sahonier to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can.
Just one question. Andrew, Dave, what's with the beers?
Is that it, Ted?
No, there's more. You guys do a great job, have for many years, and I know. I hope everything is going well. You guys have done the best for so long. I'm proud to say that I know you. And that's that. No big deal. I've heard from other people that said all sorts of, well, racist things. Guys, I talked to Drew, and Drew said there's no racist things. That's it. Nothing more. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ted. The next is a phone number ending in 108. Again, please, I ask that you identify yourself and what hamlet you live in. I'm asking you to unmute. Phone number ending in 108. I'm asking you to unmute. I believe you.
Hello?
Yes. Can I have your name,
Can you hear me?
please? Yes, I can.
Anthony Martini.
Anthony who?
Martini, South Salem.
Okay.
Martini.
Okay.
I've lived here for about 10 years. I've met Dave probably in the first year that I've moved here, and he's been an absolute gentleman to me. This town is basically a working town. People come and go. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of activity going on here as far as racism or any kind of, I don't know, any kind of that would make a severe disturbance or anything like that. I see that every day. I could say that 5 years ago, I would go out of town every single weekend from Friday night to Sunday and return home. And I always felt safe with the Lewisboro Police Department around with my wife and my kids at home. Anybody who makes accusations, they would have to come forward. I mean, I was born and raised in the Bronx. It seems like the element in the Bronx is a little different from the element here. Who are these people? I don't have much more to say, but we're very lucky we have good guys like that on the force. I appreciate them, and they're really good guys. Thank you very much.
Hey, Anthony, thank you. Next, I'm asking Elena Schneier to unmute.
Hi, good evening. My name is Ilana Schneier. I'm a resident of Goldensbridge. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Police are important public servants in our communities, but they're also different kinds of public servants than others because they have the ability to use force. They carry weapons that can be destructive. And I think given that, we need to think about how we continue to support our police officers to learn more. I was really struck by Officer Alfano's realization after another meeting where there was a comment about the Blue Lives Matter flag being offensive and the openness that he showed in sort of realizing that and taking it down, as it has a history and continues to be sort of an emblem of racism and power inequalities in our country. And I just think that to think that we exist outside of a racist system is naive. Just because we don't have a lot of diversity, racial diversity in this community, does not mean that racism, which is a systemic issue, does not exist in our communities. And even though we don't try to do racist acts, we still operate in a system that is inherently racist. And therefore, we need to keep taking active steps to undo racism. And that applies across all of us, but especially in places where we have the use of force that can be much more deadly and violent and can be toward people, and there have been incidents toward people of color. And so we need to make sure that we're very attentive to that. And I think it's amazing that we have a task force that's working on this, but we need to do more, and we need to follow the Reverend's recommendations and really, keep pushing ourselves, because there are things that we don't know and that, we are ignorant of, I think, around our racist practices. I hope that we continue to kind of do a little bit more work on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elena. Now, Dean Travelino, I'm asking you to unmute. Dean, can you hear me?
Did I do it?
Yes, you did.
Great. Dean Travelino, South Salem. Listening to this, I was originally very skeptical of the whole process. I thought it was a waste of time, but I think it's worked out well for everybody. I think the report, which I assume is the consensus of the majority of the committee, maybe not everybody, but I'm sure you guys worked hard on it and got it done. I think it's reasonable, everything I've seen there. Sort of sad that the people who are more vocal against the police haven't really seen this as a good process. I mean, I heard a lot of people, minorities who came from the Bronx, where I came from, talk about how great a community this is, which I liked. I heard a lot of other people, another view, which maybe I haven't heard as much, which I think was worthwhile for me and for other people to hear also. But I also think the supervisor said something. The way this department was set up a few years ago by some forward-thinking people who decided that we needed a chief to have a professional management. They do have guns. Guns are dangerous instrumentalities. They need training, and that's why we have a professional staff. And people thought that up a few years ago. I think that works too. I've been helping personally, probably my life saved by the police here. It's a great effort. Skeptical in the beginning, coming out pleased at what I see here now. I just wish some of these other people on the phone call would lighten up a little bit. As Glenn said, get a little bit more local focused. We're doing a good job. You guys are doing a good job and a reasonable one with the cards dealt and who we are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dean. Next, I'm asking Dan Godson to unmute.
How you doing? My name's Dan Jodison. I live in Vista. I've been a police officer for 25 years. I started off in Baltimore City from 96 to 99, where I transferred to Ridgefield, and I'm a current Ridgefield police officer. I work with the South Salem Police Department pretty much on a regular basis at times. They have been nothing but professional, respectful, level-minded, rational, and I appreciate all the work that I've done with them and they have done with us. And I want to also say the state police, the New York State Police, when we've worked with them, I found the same approach with them. Everything has been very respectful and we've worked well together. And our work with the community, I'm very happy with. And I'm just very happy with, and I just really want everybody to know that. When I go to work in the morning, like any other police officer, I take a deep breath. And when I get home, I take a sigh of relief, and I'm just happy to be with my family. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Next, I'm asking Tom Hamelin to unmute.
Hi, it's actually Lena Hamelin. I live in South Salem. I've lived here for a little over 3 years, and I've met about 4 to 5 officers here in the town and have had some great experiences with them. They've all been so respectful and professional, and specifically Dave Alfano, and have had numerous conversations with him and really like the vision that he has for the department. I haven't been following social media, like everything that somebody mentioned that there's stuff going on regarding racism, but I do support some anti-racism training because this is a changing community that will continue to become more diverse. And as a Hispanic woman myself, I have felt it a little bit in the community. So I do support that, along with body cams that will make their job a little bit easier, and just general ongoing training.
Okay, thanks, Lena. Next, we have Jim M. Jim, can I ask you to state your last name?
Good evening, members of the committee. My name is Jim McManus. I'm a resident of Goldens Bridge. First, I would ask that the town board or Chief Alfano release data or statistics that would pertain to complaints registered or received in regards to any sort of racial profiling or bias in their duties of policing. Just so us as citizens of the town of Lewisboro have a grip on how prevalent this issue is. Second, obviously I would support any sort of budgetary adjustments that need to be made to accommodate additional training or equipment that'll assist our officers in executing their job function. And third, I would caution the members of this committee in allowing for anonymous complaints. The Sixth Amendment of our Constitution says that in commission of a crime, you have the right to face your accuser. That would be in direct violation. I don't have anything else for you. Thanks for your time, folks, and have a wonderful evening.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I have another, Paul Ammerling. I'm asking you to unmute.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can, Paul.
So I'm fairly new to following this process. And what has struck me is that I worry about anonymous complaints. I worry about people who are really, anti-police, not that some people don't have legitimate reasons. I think that there's certainly room for everybody to learn and grow, but just to simply point out a very obvious fact that our police are there and they could choose not to be there as individuals. They're not mandated, they don't have to work there. And I think they're great. I've met them all personally and professionally. But should the individual officers feel, set upon inappropriately or even appropriately, we just have to be careful how we treat them. That should, they decide to resign, quit, move, relocate to a different department, those who are complaining may find that they don't have a department to respond when they really need them. I think that's pretty obvious to most people, but I just wanted to say it to have it heard clearly one more time. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Paul. I'm asking Beth Retsky to unmute.
Janet, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Beth.
Thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to thank the committee as well as Chief Alfano, Sergeant Llewellyn, and the rest of the department for not only being on this committee, serving on this committee, working together with different people of different faiths, beliefs, agendas, etc. It cannot be easy. It's obviously a sensitive issue for everyone. So I commend and thank you all the whole committee for doing so. Couple of things. First of all, I agree with a couple other people that the third-party anonymous complaints to be submitted is a dangerous road to be on. You don't know, unfortunately, if it's a legitimate complaint, if it's a fictitious complaint, and you don't know if someone is going to, unfortunately, in this day and age, flood your office with fictitious complaints where the one real complaint then won't be addressed. So that is a dangerous road. So I just ask the committee to please reevaluate that and just be 100% sure that's really the road that you want to commit to. Second of all, Glenn earlier said it very clear. This is supposed to be addressing a local issue. not county, not state, and certainly not national. So far, I have not heard between this meeting tonight with everyone that has spoken and the previous meeting that I did attend, I'm sorry, I did not attend, but I did listen to. I have not heard one issue regarding our local police department. I've heard about state, I've heard about national, and I've heard about everyone else's personal agenda. The personal agenda of a few followers should not be necessarily what's included in this proposal. The committee's consensus is what should be in this committee's proposal. So I applaud all of you for working together. And also please consider approving additional funding for body cams. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Beth. And that's it.
In that case,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Dan
Another hand just went up. Dan Murtha?
Yeah, you guys can hear me?
Yes, we can.
I know it's a little bit late, so thank you for indulging me. I'm Dan Murtha. I'm from South Salem. I've never spoken at the committee, but I want to thank everybody for their work and for allowing me a chance to contribute tonight. Personal opinion, I think that our Lewisboro police officers need to be thanked for what they do every day, not attacked for the specter of police misconduct that we perceive from the national news. Now, even perhaps anonymously. That's not fair. These officers, some of them who are here tonight, are the best of us. And I think it's sad that some people continue to paint with broad brushes, ugly brushes, that often have little bearing on reality in our little town of Lewisboro. When you call 911 here, the first face that you might see is probably that of a Lewisboro police officer. They jump into action to help you, to help us. And that's a good thing. Just look at their track record of excellence. Every day, the police in this town put their skin in the game on our behalf. They wear a bulletproof vest for a reason. They carry a sidearm for a reason. Their conduct and dedication to our town is not something that needs to be reformed or, in my opinion, reinvented, because they've shown that they are willing to work with the community to address our concerns proactively and aggressively. They're here tonight, and they've showed under the harshest scrutiny that they're up to the task. And I think we should support them instead of trying to tear them down. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan. Next, I'm asking Kevin Uretsky to unmute. Kevin?
Good evening. Thank you very much. I think it's important really quickly for us to review and remember why we're here with the committee to begin with. Because of the tragic events in Minneapolis, certain communities within New York State reacted in a less than positive way. So the governor asked every community within the state to review their own police practices so that no community in New York State would wind up with a situation like what happened in Minneapolis. That is the point of this committee, and that is the point of the governor's mandate. Not for there to be anonymous complaints against our police officers, not for there to be social media chatter and online postings trying to damage the character of the standout individuals who form our police department. The narrow focus of this committee is to review police practices, make sure there's no systemic racism within your community, and review the practices to make sure what happened there would not happen here. And barring any pattern of systemic racism in the professional, and as far as I'm concerned, the standout performance of our police department, everything else that is being discussed needs to be washed away. Training is good. Reviewing of practices is good. No police department should ever stand on its laurels and not look within itself to see how it can't get better and serve the community better. But it's important for the committee, and I thank the committee for their efforts, to remember the focus from the governor's office. This is not a widespread mandate. It is narrowly focused, and We should thank our officers for their service, for their standout record of performance. Supervisor Parsons said at the beginning of the meeting, they have come a long way in a very short time, and that's what our focus should be on. Sometimes woke culture, as revelatory as it may be, sometimes needs to take a little bit of a nap. They should not have to face anonymous complaints and things that are not there, and boogeymen in the night which don't exist. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, I'm asking Laura Giardina to unmute.
Hi, Janet. This is Nick Giardina.
Hi, Nick. Okay.
I'm just calling in to show my support for the Lewisboro Police Department. I've been a member of this community my whole life. My family has been in this area for over 65 years. I just can't tell you the sense of community that they bring to the school, the students, the people. I couldn't agree more with Kevin. That was unbelievably said. If there is an issue to be resolved, it should be resolved with data, with facts and statistics to show a problem. Other than that, if there's no problem, you want to look into certain things, fine, but don't use the governor's mandate for changing something that's not broken because a few people want to say that it is based on assumptions. And to have third-party complaints actually taken is insane. Imagine that moves to anything, that we can just point fingers and just say something anonymously and let somebody else deal with it. That's crazy. I mean, I think this town has really started to make a real leap, and I don't know where you're going to land. This was a great community, so close, and all I see now is division. And this is only dividing more. Please, please reel in this town. Start with our police department. Bring us together instead of stop pushing us apart. Dave, thank you to all of what you do, your police officers. Thank you for keeping my family and my children safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Next, I'm asking Joseph Ternato to unmute.
Yep, you got my last name right. One of the few who's actually done it.
Yay.
I'd like to say basically is trust but verify, as they used to say. The problem is that makes me nervous is a slippery slope of people coming out and just saying things that there's no actual way to verify whether they actually happened or not. I'm not going to say they didn't happen. The thing is, I would like people to be able to prove what they're saying actually occurred. In my years of being in Lewisboro and the 15 years I've worked in a company that's been hand in hand with the police department, basically, I have never seen one single thing that would warrant any form of what's the word, a racial issue, so to speak. I have seen them do nothing but treat everyone more than equally. That's about it.
Okay, thank you, Joseph. Okay, that appears to be it, Supervisor and Chief.
Okay, in that case, I'll bring this meeting to a close. Thank you all very much for speaking, and thank you all very much for being present.